The day I did get on a plane and go to New Orleans last week, I had sciatica for the first time, wherein I had shooting pain down my right buttock down all the way to my right thigh. And I was like, I have to get on a plane today before the great blizzard comes. I was like putting a frozen bag of edamame on my back for 20 minutes and then switching it out with the heating pad. I was doing like yoga for sciatica exercises on the internet.
See, everybody, thin people can have back pain. I have a friend who I work with who is quite a bit older than me. She's mother aged.
What if you were to be like, she's 35?
My elder, she's like a 14-year-old daughter. She texted me this today because we were both in the same meeting and it's so out of pocket, but I love it. She goes, that meeting was awesome and scary. Right now I'm cooking shrimp and cauliflower and listening to Ike and Tina on vinyl. I'm so sad she was getting her ass beat, but damn, she had soul with and without Ike. Red heart emoji.
That is like a text you get. Is this an 80-year-old woman?
Spiritually, I think that she is at least 400 years old.
That's like a grandma text.
She's a little bit of a grandma. She was a yoga teacher and owned a bakery. The other day, she was like, yeah, have you heard how autistic people can communicate telepathically? And I... and what she actually... What she actually meant is a real thing about, like, nonverbal...
About how autistic people can communicate telepathically.
It's a real thing about how autistic children in particular can, like, have this kind of nonverbal communication and, like, pick up on cues with each other that neurotypical, like, children do not. Real thing. But she just hit me straight up with the, did you know autistic children are telepathic?
That really, I was mid-sip of a poppy and I almost just spit it out all over my desk.
Yeah.
Speaking of mad scientists, welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast about how masculinity can be unthreatening sometimes, hosted by a gay man working at a fashion magazine and a gay man working in a burlesque club. I'm Mackenna Goodrich.
I'm Dr. Aubrey Hoffer.
And Aubrey, I'm done.
You are done.
I'm never watching anything with Stanley Tucci in it ever again.
Let me ask you a question. We said mad scientist.
Okay.
My mind immediately jumps to the question, what if Stanley Tucci was in Poor Things instead of Mark Ruffalo?
Oh, instead of Mark Ruffalo, that's interesting. He'd be good in that part, for sure. I don't think they ever would have, I think he would have been cast in the Willem Dafoe part, probably.
Probably, but in my mind, I guess he isn't the mad scientist. We said mad scientist, and then that made me think of Frankenstein, which made me think of Poor Things, which made me think of Mark Ruffalo, which made me think of
Stanley. Because we're always thinking about Mark Ruffalo's 9/11 conspiracy theories.
I can't wait to one day bring that up to him in person.
I don't know. Well, you know what? No, I do think they would have cast him in Mark Ruffalo's part as like the older eccentric man who was trying to boink Emma Stone. That is probably who they would have cast him as.
I think he would have ate that up.
Yeah, he probably would have.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that kind of falls into one of the buckets of like his types that I'm going to talk about later. I've determined I think there's like 4 general buckets of Tucci roles after watching so much shit.
Well, and the thing that I'm excited for us to talk about is we did a little bit of our own theorizing about what is the Stanley Tucci role that we want him to play that he has not played yet.
Yeah.
We settled on cult leader.
We did settle on cult leader. We both thought specifically like a Jim Jones could be interesting or Herb Baumeister.
I'm still holding out for Marcus Applewhite.
Sorry, I meant Marcus Applewhite. I said Herb Baumeister, who is an American serial killer who I believe died much younger than Stanley Tucci currently is, so he could not play Herb Baumeister. I did mean Marshall Applewhite.
If you have a narrow view, Stanley Tucci could not play Herb Baumeister.
Yeah. But I think that Marshall Applewhite is interesting. I do still think that, like, I am interested in a Steve Martin Marshall Applewhite, too, though.
That would be God tier casting. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think if it was 1998, that would be a movie and he would win an Oscar for it. I do not think that it would be a movie right now. Yeah,
I was really thinking about the Jim Jones because I was looking at pictures of Jim Jones from like right before he died. I think there's something that like having something to play in Guyana, Jim Jones, and then maybe having someone younger than him play, like Kieran Culkin's playing young him in the Hunger Games movies now, having like a younger guy play like when he's in California and in Indiana. Jim Jones, like that's interesting to me.
Love and Mercy is the Brian Wilson biopic that does that, and I really do think it's excellent. I think it's a little bit slept on because it's John Cusack as like modern Brian Wilson, and then Paul Dano as young Brian Wilson. The young Brian Wilson part is exponentially better, but John Cusack does a good job. I love me some John Cusack.
Love John Cusack. Remember when Quentin Tarantino came for Paul Dano for no reason?
He did it again, didn't he, with Matthew Lillard too, right?
Yeah.
He's just catching strays. Who I have a whole concept of an episode about my love for Matthew Lillard, Seth Green. I have to mention Dax Shepard, even though he's not really there for me. But
well, you did love Dax Shepard, and then we all listened to too much Armchair Expert.
I know. Here's the thing, though. I was that's
what I mean.
I was on the front lines, guys.
That's what I mean. It's like you liked him a lot.
Yes, I genuinely think the first I don't know, 25 to 50 episodes of Armchair Expert were really, really good.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're finishing up talking about Stanley Tucci today. I joke that I'm never going to watch anything with him ever again, but like I will see Devil Wears Prada 2, and also probably the astounding amount of movies he will make after that, because he is in an astounding amount of content. But yeah, I've watched through the filmography as much as I could at this point. I'll be honest. Get into the end here, I did only watch parts of some of these movies because some of these are really bad. But I feel like I've seen what I need to see. I've seen what I need to see, and we are going to end today with sort of this like commercial era. Basically, this is going to cover most of the 2000s thus far, because we're going to start with Devil Wears Prada and go all the way up through The Fountain of Youth. And so this is his commercial era where he starts appearing in big franchise films like The Hunger Games and Transformers. He also does a ton of indie movies during this period, a bunch of British TV shows, and let me just say, a lot of really not good stuff. My man said yes to too many things. And then we're also going to cover his transition into food and drink content during the pandemic, both on TikTok and Instagram, and also his 2 travel shows about Italy.
So many actors and just famous people, I think, have tried to make a food and wine pivot.
Yeah, and I think to some more success than others.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the Stanley Tucci travel, one of them, I don't remember which one, and it was just okay to me.
They're kind of the same thing, so if you've seen one, you have in fact seen the other. So Aubrey, the bulk of today's episode is something that I am calling the Stanley Tucci Buffet, or A Touch of Tucci, wherein I am going to give you a list of everything I watched for this specific episode, and for about the next hour, specifically the next 65 minutes, because Stanley Tucci is 65 years old. You're going to pick the ones that you want me/you to talk about, and then we'll get to sort of the food and drink content and some closing thoughts at the end. But for 65 minutes, we're going to just sort of talk through some of this list. And you'll be like, Mackenna, why are you not just talking through everything? So Aubrey, I'm going to share my slideshow with you right now. It's not a slideshow, it's just a single page. So this is everything I watched for this episode. Audience, I'm now going to read it out loud, and you will understand why we are going to only talk about some of these. For this episode, I watched The Devil Wears Prada, Monk, What Just Happened, ER, Kit Kitteridge, Space Chimps, The Tale of Despero, Julie and Julia, The Lovely Bones, Easy A, Burlesque, Margin Call, Captain America the First Avenger, 30 Rock, The Company You Keep, Robot Chicken, Some Velvet Morning, The Wind Rises, Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, Catching Fire, Muppets Most Wanted, American Dad, Transformers Age of Extinction, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, Wild Card, BoJack Horseman plus A Christmas Special, Larry Gay, Renegade Male Flight Attendant, Spotlight, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, Peter Pan and Wendy, Feud, Betty and Joan, Transformers The Last Night, The Children Act, Patient Zero, A Private War, The Silence, Limetown, Worth, Supernova, The Witches, Jolt, La Fortuna, The King's Man, Inside Man, Central Park, I Want to Dance with Somebody, Citadel, Conclave, The Electric State, and The Fountain of Youth. So to talk about all of that in a single episode would be a 10-hour long episode, which we don't have the time for because I have to go to yoga at 7:30 p.m. So we're going to talk about some of these.
And if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you want us to talk about more, send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com, and fuck it, we might do an episode on it.
I had only ever seen the first Hunger Games movie, and I watched the rest of them for this, and I would be interested in talking more about like the Hunger Games in general, but obviously today we're going to be focused on the Tucci content. So Aubrey, I'm going to start the timer, and we're just going to go through. You're going to pick ones that you want to talk about. I'll delete it from the list once we've talked about it, and we'll just talk about it for as long as we want to, and we sort of feel like we've reached the end of talking about that thing. We'll move on to another one. So Aubrey, do you have the first thing you want to talk about selected?
Space Chimps.
Okay, well, thank God we're going to talk about Space Chimps, a movie that enraged me. So Space Chimps is an animated movie by a studio that I've never heard of. They also made Valiant and Happily Never After, which I vaguely remember but never saw.
I vaguely remember Valiant too. That's the pigeon one, right?
Yes, it is.
I remember the ads for it on TV, and I feel like it's one of those movies that they played while I was in school to, like, keep us all calm one day.
Yeah, and then I remember, like, seeing, like, the Happily Never After one is interesting because I feel like I remember seeing, like, a cutout for it, like, in the Harkins in Chandler, Arizona. But even my mom was like, we're not going to go see that. Yeah. So Space Chimps had some bigger names in it, including Andy Samberg, Jeff Daniels, Patrick Warburton, Christian Chenoweth, Kenan Thompson, Jane Lynch, obviously Stanley Tucci, and Cheryl Hines, who you might know as RFK's wife. So I want to say a few things about this movie. Oh my God, some of the scariest looking aliens I have ever seen in a movie. Aubrey, let me show you a Space Chimps alien because they are truly just like, what the fuck is up with that?
Yeah. Oh.
Seeing them in...
Why? I hate it. Oh my God. They're like amphibian bear monkeys that are teal, and they have little articulated fingers and toes. Oh my God. I hate them.
Yeah, they're awful. Jeff Daniels plays like a big one and he's like the evil one. I was like, what is this movie? So Stanley Tucci plays a very scary looking senator who is for some reason in charge of the space agency and can unilaterally shut it down. Like he just goes, no more space agency, and he's just like a senator.
You know what? I used to be like, hey, that can never happen. We've got checks and balances in our society. But honestly, now we're at war with Iran and there's no structure in anything. Congress is dead.
No, they're doing prayer circles about this being a God-ordained war in the White House. So what's going on? You know what I mean?
Congress is rolling in her grave.
Sure is. Okay, so this is the senator that Stanley Tucci plays in Space Chimps.
Let's see. Is he sexy? Not. I'd fuck it.
Okay. But yeah, so he's just like kind of like he's not the bad guy of the movie, but he's not the good guy of the movie either. Very much in the bucket of him like being an evil authority figure that he's played in other movies.
Is he a Democrat or Republican senator?
I don't think that's ever established because I don't understand this government structure.
What does he feel like?
Well,
is it beyond the two-party system?
He feels like a Republican, but it's also like it feels like they wanted to write him as the president of the United States and then for some reason made him a senator, and it doesn't make any sense.
What year did this come out? Who was president at the time?
Great question. It came out in 2008, so Bush was the president at the time.
Maybe this was a conservative studio and they didn't want to seem anti-Bush.
Maybe.
Speaking of anti-Bush, I don't know. Idaho. Never mind.
I was like, are we gonna make a joke about Stanley Tucci being bald?
Well, I mean, it does just remind me of the topic that comes to my mind all the time, which is just that nobody's shaving their pussies anymore. That's all. We're all just out here now. And
it's too much work.
I'm always seeing media about it, and I'm like, hey, I think that has interesting socio-political implications.
I wrote a whole paper in college about shaving body hair.
Yeah.
The writing is so bad in this movie that I actually don't understand how people get to make movies like this. There is a second Space Chimps movie, Zartog Strikes Back, and I almost watched it, but then it was one of those where I would have had to pay to watch it. Space Chimps I could watch for free on YouTube, but I would have had to pay to watch Space Chimps 2 Zartog Strikes Back, and there was just no fucking way.
Why can we watch so many movies for free on YouTube with ads now? If that's like a
I don't
new
know.
thing. Yeah.
There was several of the movies that I watched for this series, that was how I watched them, was they were free with ads on YouTube.
They're coming for Tubi.
They are coming for Tubi. And I mean, like, it's a good model because YouTube already, like, operates on AdSense, so. But, like, this is, I don't know, it's interesting because this is obviously not the first time he's done voice acting. Like, that was Robots. But, I mean, he's good at it.
Does he do any kind of voice, or is he just Stanley Tucci voice?
He's just kind of Stanley Tucci voice in this one. It's not really any like, specific voice for this movie. All right. I think that is all to be said about Space Chimps. All right, Aubrey, what's your next choice?
I would like to talk about Lovely Bones.
Great. Okay, so Aubrey, have you seen this movie?
I have read the book, and I loved the book, but I never watched the movie because I always heard that the movie was terrible, even though I always saw a lot of, like, black and white edits of it on Tumblr, which made me think it was a good movie.
I think it's a really interesting attempt at a movie.
Okay.
I just don't know what Peter Jackson would. So I know I haven't read the book, but in the book there's like the parts where she's like in not heaven limbo, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, I know the lore of this movie is that originally it was Ryan Gosling in Stanley Tucci's part, and he like
nope.
That's not a thing?
And Mark Wahlberg's part.
Oh, and Mark Wahlberg's part. Okay. And then I guess he like gained a bunch of weight, and then like it was gonna be this whole physical transformation, and then he was cut, I guess.
He was fired the first day of shooting.
Why?
He was 26, 27, 28 at the time. He was in his late 20s, supposed to be playing the father of a 14-year-old girl.
How do you not recognize that till the first day of filming?
I think they were like really trying to make it work, and then Peter Jackson was just, and like Ryan Gosling has said that he has no hard feelings about it, and that was like part of the weight gain stuff was in an attempt to try to look older. That wasn't something that Peter Jackson asked him to do. That was something he did on his own in an attempt to look older. And then he did ultimately, not. They were like, you don't look like this girl's dad, and so he was replaced with Mark Wahlberg, who was more age appropriate to be playing Saoirse Ronan's father.
That's just crazy to me, though, thinking about like film production and all the time and contracts and everything like that. Like, that just seems like that can't be commonplace to make such a change like that.
It certainly is not. It certainly is not.
Wow.
So
I didn't realize Mark Wahlberg was the dad. Oh my god, he probably did terrible.
He's fine. He's okay. Like, he's just fine. Like, Ryan Gosling would have done a better acting job for sure. Like 100% absolutely would have done a much better acting job. And like, if you made this movie today, he's 100% the right choice to play this role. But 10 years ago, he just wasn't the right choice for it.
Yeah.
So I always thought this movie was like universally beloved, but that's only because I only remember the thing I remember about it is Stanley Tucci getting nominated for an Oscar. And apparently it was not. And the performances by Saoirse Ronan, Stanley Tucci, and Susan Sarandon are specifically praised, but the movie as a whole is not. And specifically, people really did not like Peter Jackson's directing of this movie. Specifically in those like limbo not dream sequences, because it's not a dream, but like limbo sequences where she's like in not heaven in the afterlife. People did not like how like candy colored he made them, and how like the tone of it kind of made it seem like it was a good thing that she died because it's like so sparkly and dreamy. And so people really did not like those sections of the movie specifically.
Well, I remember you saying that it looked very CGI, like bad CGI.
And then the scenes that are on Earth and in real life are so grounded and look so good. Then whenever we cut to these like weird CGI dream scenes, I think I maybe texted you and I told you it reminded me of like Bridge to Terabithia for adults, but also it looked worse than Bridge to Terabithia. And so like, I don't know, it was really odd. Like the CGI felt like it should have been for a movie that was made way, way sooner. And like, apparently Lynn Ramsey was originally set to write and direct it. And based on how she's talked about it, she like really wanted to cut down on those sections. And so I think she probably would have done a better job. Also, she's just a grittier director, and like, I don't know, she's a woman, which I think is maybe more interesting for this specific subject matter.
Well, it's just such a beautiful book about this girl who is murdered, and essentially her in the afterlife, like making sense of the fact that she is killed at the age of like 14, and essentially like coming to terms with her own mortality, and like the fact that she will not watch her younger sister grow up and stuff like that. Like it's a heart-wrenching book.
Yeah, and I think Lynn Ramsey talked about just like wanting to make those sequences feel more serious and less like we're running around in the big open field and trying on dresses and it's all fun here. And it's like, people just thought that was really tonal. Yeah, people thought it was really tonally weird. So then, of course, there's Stanley Tucci, who plays the rapist and murderer of Saoirse Ronan's character. He has, pretty famously in this movie, these really weird blue contact lenses that make his eyes, like, extremely, extremely, extremely blue. I can't really tell what the point of them are, except for making him look more Anglo-Saxon, less Italian, and also really scary. But he is like blonde hair and blue eyed in this movie.
The second time he's had blonde hair and blue eyes as an evil man.
Yeah, I did have a note about that in here too. Very, very conspiracy. But yeah, and so he looks not like himself really at all. And he's also doing this very specific voice. And it's almost like the voice that he's doing almost seems like the voice of many British actors when they're faking an American accent. And so it's like he's so scary and the character voice he's doing is so weird and he looks so unsettling that it's just like I was like, I got why he got nominated for an Oscar because it is such like a crazy physical transformation that he's doing. And like even in other movies where like he is doing good character acting stuff, I'm never distracted by his presence being like, oh, well, that's Stanley Tucci. But I think he is so distinctive looking that, and has such a distinct voice that I am still like have a background awareness of it being him. And in this movie, I really lose sight of the fact that that's Stanley Tucci. Like, I'm like, that's some other fucking guy.
Let me pull up a picture of what he looks like in that movie.
Yeah, well, I feel like, let me actually try to find you a video so you can actually see him, listen to him talk too. Okay, this is, don't watch all of this because this is when it gets into the murder, but watch the beginning.
Okay.
I just don't want to like be like, hey, here's the sequence where he murders and abuses a child.
Would you like a refreshment, Susie?
Actually, I have to go.
No, be polite. You have to be polite. Be polite. That's another rule.
Yeah, he did eat that up, I fear. I can see how the movie as a whole is probably not the best, but how his performance would be singled out as being exemplary.
And I think that like we see that throughout his career. Like there's so many of these movies where my nose are just like, why was he in this movie? He's doing so much better in it than literally everybody else. And so that's what I think is really interesting that this becomes his like Oscar nominated performance, is because like other ones of his performances I think also fall into this category. But this was a movie that I think was very much marketed as like a prestige film, and then people just didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so in the same, I mean, we see this a lot actually with Best Actress nominees. Where the movie maybe is not very good, but the breakout performance by the woman still gets nominated for an Oscar. That happens much more frequently for women at the Oscars than for men. And so but I do think that's kind of what happened in this instance.
I always feel like I see that with like women biopics where I'm like, I never even heard of this movie coming out, but then it's like, oh, she's nominated for an Oscar for it.
And sometimes it's like, oh, she won an Oscar for it. Who is it? The Renee Zellweger, Judy Garland one.
That was exactly what I was thinking of.
I knew it was. Okay, let's pull back up the list.
I would like to talk about, I think we have to talk about The Devil Wears Prada.
Great, let's talk about The Devil Wears Prada. Stanley Tucci plays Nigel Kipling, who is Runway's art director. If you don't know what The Devil Wears Prada is about, it is about Anne Hathaway plays a character named Andy, who gets a job as an assistant to Miranda Priestley, who is the editor-in-chief of Runway, which is Vogue. Like, it's Vogue. And so he is the art director who she goes to pretty early on to be like, help me dress better, because I'm not going to make it very far at this company if I can't dress well, and he helps her. He plays an extremely similar role here and in a movie he's in a few years later called Burlesque, which is basically a man who advocates for and gives advice to the fish out of water protagonist and is a gay man. I think it's interesting because Tucci says that work sort of dried up for him after this, which I think is maybe what got him into the survival mode, where he does a ton of whack projects over this period that we're going to cover today, which is basically 20 years. I do think this role in particular is really what introduced him to Gen Z and millennials, and will always be my first memory of him. And thus, I think a lot of people around our age assumed he was a queer man, but that's not true. Like, this is a straight man. And he met his second wife doing this movie, because he's married to Emily Blunt, who is the other assistant for Miranda Priestley in this movie. He is married to Emily Blunt's sister, Felicity Blunt.
As one is.
Yeah. Aubrey, do you have any thoughts on Devil Wears Prada?
John Krasinski's brother-in-law?
He is John Krasinski's brother-in-law.
Didn't you leave a teaser in last episode that he may have harassed Anne Hathaway on this set?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that in a little bit. I couldn't really find confirmation of this. I looked a little bit. So basically, I was on Reddit. There's a story in something called Celeb Bitchy from 2006. Wow, this is an old article that might make my computer explode.
Primary sources.
Yeah, so this is an article from New Zealand, and it still doesn't say where she said this. But it basically, apparently he was like constantly elbowing her in the chest. And he was like, can you please stay away from my tits? I'm trying to figure out where this was actually said. Everyone just keeps saying the stunning actress reveals that she had to keep saying this. I found the full quote. I still don't know this is from a live journal, so I still don't know the original source of this. But she explains, there was this one day where he kept elbowing me in the breast. He wasn't doing it to be like a dirty old man, but if we were doing a scene or if I was just crossing to get to my mark, he would smack me in my boob and elbow me. If you're a girl, that hurts. So after about the fourth time, I finally turned to him and said, Stanley, can you please stay away from my tits? Stanley got really flustered and said, what do you expect? You're flinging those melons around like it's harvest season.
Unfortunately funny.
Yeah, like, and it's interesting to me that, like, she kind of tells the story in jest. I mean, okay. Basically, towards the end of the episode, I have a note about, like, this is not a perfect man. It's not at all what we're trying to say here. And that, like, it would not surprise me if he was doing some shitty man behavior on sets sometimes, because I sort of just baseline believe that most male actors have done shitty man behavior on set sometimes. And that doesn't excuse it and say that they should be doing it, but I just think that is unfortunately the truth.
Right. Well, and also we can say, hey, he might have done some shitty man behavior. This also isn't saying that we think Stanley Tucci is like a evil rapist, like predator in Hollywood. It's
and
like,
I don't think, I think based on the way that Anne Hathaway is telling that story, I don't think she thinks that either.
No, I mean, it really sounds like it's more of like kind of just like a faux pas of like, oh, I'm gonna jab you when you walk by because, like, you know, fucking guys do that. They like poke you and like push you as like a little joke, and then, you know, she was like, oh, stop poking my tits, and he was like, oh, you're flinging them everywhere. It's like, you know, it's one of those things where unfortunately the lines become blurred, because it's like, if that's happening with someone who you don't know well or have a good relationship with, that is sexual harassment.
There's been things about him like flirting with people on set, and so like I don't think that, like, I'm sure she wasn't like super steezed about this happening, and I don't think it's good behavior by any means. But yeah, I do think that, like, it's one of those things that is like call outable but not cancelable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
like, I don't think this is where I would be like, Stanley Tucci should no longer be welcome on a film set, like, in the way that I'm like, no one should let Harvey Weinstein near a film set. And they've worked together several times since then, which, again, is still not, like, she could still be really fucked up by it, but, like, they were in The Witches together, they're doing Devil Wears Prada Part 2.
Right.
And so, I mean, I don't know, I think it's hard, I mean, especially when I'm, like, really not able to find, like, a firm source on this. But I think it's worth just mentioning that, like, when we're like, we love you, Stanley Tucci, like, I don't know this man. I mean... he could have done something horrible. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like we got into this with, like, the Family Guy stuff. I think we've gotten into this with, like, every episode that centers around a real person rather than a character is basically, like, asterisks. They might not be great.
Right. And, like, real people are real complicated.
Yes.
Celebrities in particular, real complicated.
Well, yeah, be surprised. To become a public figure, I just think that you have to have a certain level of, like, bravado and slight, like,
ego.
Yeah, and ego and a little bit of willingness to, like, make people feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that just leads to a lot of, like, boundaries being crossed and stuff.
Yeah, and so it's tricky. I mean, you know, you think about, like, the sort of, like, the way we see this with women often is, like, in, like, the diva behavior.
Mm-hmm.
This is not to compare diva behavior to, like, sexual harassment, but, like, it's just... celebrities sort of operate in this, like, weird different zone, and I have, as someone who, like, works in entertainment, I have so many thoughts and feelings about that, and, like, I don't think it's good, and I wish that people, like, I wish that it wasn't that way, but it also kind of is. It also kind of is.
Have you experienced someone who you've worked with having diva behavior?
Oh yeah, and not even, like, celebrities, like, just, like, actors.
What is without naming names or anything, what is, like, the most egregious sort of diva behavior you've seen?
Let me think on that. I don't know off the top of my head, because it's mostly, like, little stuff. Like, it's mostly just, like...
We do know about a certain celebrity essentially trying to break up a relationship between two people to try to get someone who they know to date somebody, which is insane behavior.
Oh, yeah. I kind of forgot about that. That was crazy.
I mean, and that's like in... I mean, I would call that person like an A-list celebrity.
Yeah, I would too. I think that there was lots of, like, in working with people who were, like, a little...
I feel like I'm faux moi right now, or
faux
de
moi
moi
right now. I think that, like, I've also just had a lot of experiences of, like, being in specifically, like, theater rehearsal rooms with people, and this is, like, not bad, but it's, like, where, like, someone just takes up so much of the oxygen, and everything about putting the scene together becomes about them, and it's not a collaborative experience because you're so focused on the needs and wants and desires of this single person. That has happened to me, I would say, the most amount of times, especially as a director. It's really infuriating because then you feel like you're failing your other actors because you want to be giving them equal time, but this other person has decided that their needs supersede the needs of other people in the room. And you're just sort of like, I don't care. And I have to care. And I oftentimes have to care because you're the like highest, starriest person in this cast. But like, if you are taking up so much time that I can't work with the other people in this room, that's a real problem. And I would also say 90% of the time that those people are not giving the best performance in the room because it is all about them being deeply self-conscious that they're not doing a good job. And that's why they're being so needy and also blaming it on everything. Andrew Scott said this at a really interesting thing to this effect at a talkback I was with him. He was like, you can tell when an actor doesn't know their lines on set because they don't know their lines and they spend the rest of the time making it everybody else's problem, saying it's the director's fault. It's the chair's in a different spot. The chair's in a different spot. And like friends who have worked with like capital like movie and TV celebrities who then come do a theater project say that specifically they deal with the most is it becomes all about them because they are not prepared and they don't have the muscle to do this, but they refuse to admit to that fact. And so then it just becomes everybody else's issue. It's the director's fault. It's the stage manager's fault. It's their understudy's fault. It's the set designer's fault. It's not the fact that they're not prepared. Yeah. And that I would say is like interpersonally, that's the diva behavior I have dealt with the most is that like oxygen sucking up in the,
Just making it all me.
Exactly. Anything else with The Devil Wears Prada before we move on?
I feel like the major discourse on this movie is people being like, she's the girl boss and her boyfriend sucks. I'm gonna be the fucking woman hater and I'm gonna say I actually think she was kind of a bitch to him a little bit and I think they wanted different things in their relationship and I think she was dishonest with him.
And if you'd like to hear more about that, we'll do a full episode on The Devil Wears Prada, especially because the new one is coming out pretty soon. All right, Aubrey, pick another one.
Julie and Julia!
All right, so Julie and Julia is, we've talked about the movie a little bit before where it's ostensibly a romantic comedy, but it's like two parallel movies, one about Julia Child, who is a famous French chef, and then this couple living, I believe, in New York City, the woman starts to cook through Julia Child's cookbook. And so in the movie, Stanley Tucci plays Paul Child, who is Julia Child's husband. He plays Julia Child's husband. He's a ride or die. A man has never loved his wife the way that Paul Child loves Julia Child in this movie. And I love their relationship in this movie. And I love that half of this movie.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Julia Powell is the other woman, is the vlogger part of this. Mm-hmm. And her story is so uncompelling to me, unfortunately. And I want to say, I feel like the plot twist is that the guy who she's with in the movie, she's not with in real life, but I guess she is. Which I always thought, I feel like I remember hearing that like wasn't, like she ended up divorcing that guy, but I guess that they are together. Well, were together. She died in 2022.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She was young.
She was. She caught COVID right before she died, but then they said that there wasn't really evidence linking COVID to her death. She died of cardiac arrest. But yeah, no, I guess she was with that guy still. Maybe I was thinking of, what was I thinking of? What's the one with Julia Roberts where that author is like fucking insane?
Oh, I don't know.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh.
Yeah. The whole drama with the Eat, Pray, Love author, and then she was like...
Well, yes, I do. Well, the new stuff, I don't know about whatever her old shit was. I do know about the new stuff.
Yeah, which is
with
just
Elizabeth
insane.
Gilbert, like maybe killing a woman.
Yeah, I love Julie and Julia. It's directed by Nora Ephron, who, one of my favorite directors.
Rom-com queen.
Absolute queen. And I think this was her last movie, wasn't it?
You might be correct on that. I'm not totally...
It was her last movie.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I just think that it's so wonderful. I actually don't think that, like, Amy Adams is bad as the blogger character.
I don't think it's her fault at all.
No, I just think that the blogger story is so freakishly uncompelling compared to the Julia Child story.
I mean, it's one of the same problems with, like, The Holiday, where, like, one of the stories is just more interesting than the other. And I think that this sort of has the same problem where, like, the Julia Child story. And also, it is... I mean, I like Amy Adams. I like Chris Messina. Mm-hmm. But, like... Meryl Streep and Stanley Tucci just have incredible, like, they have great screen chemistry. Because obviously in Devil Wears Prada, they aren't in a relationship, but they just have great screen chemistry with one another.
And he just, like, believes in her so much, and, like, I just love it. And then there's, like, the beautiful kind of element of their story about, like, them not being able to have children, but then he still supports her dreams, and, like, I really, really loved it.
I also should say Julia Child was not a French chef. She was an American woman who moves to France and becomes, like, an emblem of French cooking and gets, like, investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee and, like, crazy shit like that. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's, and we were talking about, we're like, Stanley Tucci's never been in a rom-com. And we're like, wait, no, totally this movie.
Yeah.
Totally 100% this is the Stanley Tucci rom-com.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a rom-com in the sense that it's like a story about them falling in love, but not as much like, because a rom-com, I think of like, it ends with them falling in love.
Yeah, there's no like, will they, won't they. There's only a will they with Julia and Paul Childs.
I didn't realize that there was another Julia Childs like docu-series with David Hyde Pierce as Paul Child.
Oh, cool. Who plays Julia Child?
Sarah Lancashire.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
Pretty blonde woman. She's on various BBC things.
Good for her. Oh, it's probably a British show.
Yeah, but then random that it would be David Hyde Pierce.
Listen, I could talk about the fact that Mr. Stanley Tucci has been in 8 bajillion British things.
There is something very British about Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of these TV shows that like he was in them, let me just say. All right. Anything else on Julie and Julia?
No, I just think that it's such a lovely movie, and I wish that there was a cut of it that was just the Julia Childs movie, because I would probably watch that frequently.
All right, well, let's pick our next one, shall we?
Let's talk about Easy A, just because I like Easy A.
Easy A is a movie about a girl named Olive who basically lets people pay her to say that they've had sex with her, and then she gets a reputation for being like a slut and whatever. That ends up being really bad for her. That's played by Emma Stone, and it is also starring Mr. Stanley Tucci as her father. And I will say that I think unequivocally Easy A is the hottest that Stanley Tucci's ever been. That's a man baby. That's a father. That's a daddy. He's also just in his comedy bag in this movie in a real way.
He's the funniest part of that movie.
I just think he absolutely rips in this movie. And it's interesting. He was in something else that I have on this list with Penn Badgley right around the same time. Margin Call. He was also in with Penn Badgley. And I do think, weirdly enough, they are attractive for similar reasons, which is this sort of like non-threatening masculinity. But then they can use that to be really scary because then it feels subversive, which is why I think like Penn Badgley is so compelling in You. But yeah, it was interesting that just having them be both in Easy A and in Margin Call together. And I was like, oh, there actually are there are like similarities between these two men in a way that I had never really thought about.
I feel like there could be such a good comedy with Stanley Tucci and Penn Badgley as not necessarily father and son, but I'm picturing like boss and employee, and like they have to go on a road trip or something. I think that would be a hoot.
A hoot and a holler. And that would have been a better movie than Margin Call, where in fact Stanley Tucci does play Penn Badgley's boss.
No!
But yeah, I think he's like, there's so many iconic moments where he's like, my favorite one is I was gay for a while. It's fine. Everybody does it. And then also when Emma Stone's character has a younger brother who is black and the parents were both white, says something to the effect of knowing he's adopted. And Stanley Tucci was so much sincerity, he was like, who told you? And it's so funny. Like, it's so good. The comedy beats are unmatched.
I want Stanley Tucci to play a dad in everything.
He plays a lot of fathers. He does play a lot of fathers and husbands.
But like a fun dad.
Oh, like a fun. He doesn't get to play a lot of fun dads.
I just want him to be the dad in Easy A, but imagine every movie that he's in, but he's the dad in Easy A as all of those characters.
Some of those, it would be really confusing.
You know what, though? I think it could only improve Space Chimps.
Oh, my God. I don't know.
Imagine if it was that guy as the senator in Space Chimps. He leaves that house to go to his job being the senator to cut the Space Chimps program.
He plays like an Elon Musk motherfucker in one of the Transformers movies.
God.
And like, that would be crazy if that was the dad from Easy A.
How do you think they afforded that house?
It is a nice house. Yeah, I love Easy A. Anything else to say about it?
No.
Oh, I did find out it's written by the guy who wrote the play Dog Sees God, which is like the gritty Charlie Brown sequel, and that did fuck me up for a little bit, I'll say it.
You know what? Contains multitudes.
Contains multitudes. Okay.
Is Kit Kitteridge the American Girl doll?
It sure is.
Oh, were you an American Girl doll person?
I was not. I grew up poor.
So I wasn't an American Girl doll person in the sense that I had American Girl dolls, but I loved the American Girl doll history books. And there were various of them. Kit was probably my favorite because
I think she was most people's favorite, I'll be honest.
she was just a plucky girl during the Great Depression. And I loved learning about the Great Depression. What was one of your, like, history special interests as a kid? Because for me, I loved learning about the Great Depression. I loved learning about the Titanic. I loved learning about slavery, but not in, like, a weird way. I was horrified and fascinated and wanted to know more about what was happening with slaves.
Mine was the Inca Empire, the Cold War, and World War II. Specifically, and not in like a war way, but it's specifically like in a Holocaust history way. Yeah, those were sort of my big three interests.
Yeah, Molly was the World War II American Girl doll one. I also really liked Samantha, who was like the sort of turn of the century one. I liked Samantha because I thought I maybe looked the most like Samantha, but Kit was the one who I wanted to be the most. Who is Stanley Tucci in Kit's story?
What a great question, Aubrey. So I maybe saw this when I was a kid, but I have no memory of it, so I felt like I needed to rewatch it. And I did not have American Girl dolls growing up, nor did I read the book, so there wasn't really nostalgia for me. So number one, I did not know this was gonna be about the Great Depression, and so I was like, why is this sad as fuck? Everyone's homes are getting foreclosed on. Half of the children in the movie are hobos. Like, this is, like, it's fun. It's a fun movie, but it's also like a sad ass movie. Like, I was like, this is getting into some real shit.
Yeah, they're to teach you history. They're to teach you about the horrors.
So basically, Kit Kitteridge, her
oh my god,
dad,
do you think there's a 9/11 American Girl doll?
I don't know.
Do you think there's an American Girl doll who saw the towers come down? Because, like, it would make sense, right? Because there's American Girl dolls for every era, essentially.
No. There's not.
What's the most recent one?
Well, there's lots of more recent ones, but the ones that people, they made, even though they released, the 90s historical dolls are Isabel and Nikki Hoffman, who are specifically set in the 90s, focusing on Y2K nostalgia, and they don't touch 9/11 with them.
Wow, I can't believe they haven't mentioned 9/11 in the American Girl doll universe.
No.
They don't want the kids to know. The obligatory 9/11 mention on Informed Attraction.
I've already mentioned it, and there's movies in this. You could pull one of these movies that it's about 9/11, so.
Great.
He plays, so.
Hold on, let me guess. Is he like the antagonist of this, and he's like a rich man in town who like wants to hoard resources, and then Kit Kittredge has to like take him down a little?
He is the antagonist in this, but not through the description that you gave.
Okay, I was close though.
You were close, though. So Kit's dad goes away to go, that's why I texted about Chris O'Donnell being sexy. Her dad goes away to Chicago to try to find work in Chicago because there's none in Cincinnati. And so her mom starts taking boarders into their house. And so he is one of the boarders in the house who is ostensibly a magician. But then you find out that he's like using his sleight of hand in order to steal things from all of the other boarders, including Kit's family.
Wow. He's broke as shit and he's robbing from the poor? Brother, rob from the rich.
I said he has a hilarious mustache in this movie that Spirit Gum is holding on for its dear life. Jane Krakowski is so beautiful. That was a random aside. She's also in this movie.
Who is she?
She plays like a dancer who's boarding in the house.
Sure.
Yeah. And then so Stanley is a magician, and I'm like, brother, what are you doing here? But also there's a lot of celebrities in this, so I am assuming that, like Joan Cusack's in it too. I assume that American Girl has money.
They do.
To pay them all. But yeah, so he's basically like I'm just a magician in this boarding house. Actually, I'm stealing all this shit from you guys.
Wow.
Yeah. The cops are also the villain of this movie, though, to be clear.
Always.
Because the cops are constantly trying to arrest these two hobo children, and everyone's like, fuck the police. So this is an anti-cop movie.
Kit Kittredge said a cab.
Yeah.
Is The Wind Rises the Miyazaki one?
Yeah, The Wind Rises is the Miyazaki movie about a guy who builds planes, a Japanese guy who builds planes during World War II. And so who Stanley Tucci plays in The Wind Rising is, I wrote Stanley Tucci, Italian accent era, tall king with a curly mustache and less sexy than IRL Tucci, but the voice is sexy because it's Papa. He plays a real life Italian inventor of planes, Giovanni Battista Caproni, who keeps coming to the protagonist Horikoshi in like his dreams to be like, you too will build your most beautiful plane. And so he's like in a bunch of dream sequences as this real life Italian aircraft designer.
Fun.
And yeah, I can show you what Caproni looks like, but it's Stanley Tucci doing like an Italian accent. Here he is. Here's our little guy.
I'm a big fan of Miyazaki, and I think especially the more grounded Miyazaki movies are fantastic. What I think is fascinating too, I fucking love the mustache on this guy. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah. Hell yeah, brother. What I find so interesting is that Miyazaki's movies are so hopeful and beautiful, but then when Miyazaki talks at all about what he thinks about the future of the world, he's like, we're all fucking cooked. We're all fucking fucked. And the world is fucking dying around us. Meanwhile, every Studio Ghibli movie is like, if we just work together, everything will be okay.
Yeah, totally. I wondered why they didn't cast him in the Mario movie. I was like, why was he not in that? He actually can do an accent. There was also a moment where I was watching this where I was like, why is he giving Tom Hanks in the Polar Express? And I have no answers. All the scenes with him in this movie are really, really delightful. And I just thought this was such a delightful, beautiful movie. And it was nice to watch a good one.
What is your favorite Studio Ghibli movie?
Princess Mononoke.
Such a great pick.
Yeah.
I'm very partial to Kiki's Delivery Service is probably my true answer, but I also really love The Cat Returns.
Yeah, I've never seen The Cat Returns.
I love it. It's my slept on pick.
Cool.
If anyone here has seen The Cat Returns, did ya also want to fuck the Baron? That's one of the cats in the movie.
Oh, it is a cat. It is a cat. Okay.
If you did, send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.
Great.
Let's see. Who was he in Percy Jackson?
Okay, in Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters, a movie I had not seen until doing this, he plays Mr. D, aka Dionysus.
Okay, you know what? If I was gonna have Stanley Tucci play any person from mythology, I would want him to play Dionysus the most.
Girl, he looks crazy in this movie. But he is very much like in his character actor bag here.
I feel like he would very much be giving Puck.
It was very much giving Puck. And it's funny too, because the way that they style him, so in the new TV series, it's Jason Mantzoukas plays Mr. D.
I think he's so sexy too.
And the way that they style him is very Jason Mantzoukas. And so I wonder almost if they were like, yeah, well, the one thing they cooked with in Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters was Stanley Tucci, so we should get the platonic ideal of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that Percy Jackson movie, again, I remember watching it in school when I was probably 13 or 14.
Did you watch the first one?
Yes.
The first one I actually don't think is a bad movie. I think it's a bad adaptation of The Lightning Thief, but I don't think it's a bad movie.
This is the sequel. Okay. I didn't know they made multiple.
They only made 2.
Oh.
Sea of Monsters is genuinely quite bad. I was like, I understand why this is what killed it, because I The Lightning Thief is a really not good adaptation of that book, but it's not a bad movie, whereas this, in addition to being a bad adaptation of the book, is also a bad movie.
I have the worst memory of this kid who I fucking hated when The Lightning Thief came out, just fucking ranting about not Percy Jackson, not Annabeth, but their other friend who's a boy.
Grover.
Yeah, he's played by a black actor in the movie, and I remember this kid I fucking hated in middle school was just ranting about why'd they have to make Grover black? And I was like, holy shit, Adam, I hate you.
Well, he's a young Indian lad in the new one, so it's still not a white guy. Sorry.
Good. I hope Adam is still upset. I fucking hate
Stay
that guy.
mad, Adam.
Yes. And then the worst part is I always fucking fought with this kid because he would just be evil, and then I was normal, and then for some reason teachers were like, you gotta name 3 things you like about each other, and I was like, I don't. I hate everything about him. Why are you making me compliment him?
Yeah, I don't. Listen, I can't begin to explain the decisions of adults.
Fuck it. Hunger Games.
Great. So, I mean, we can really cover, like, a lot of ground here because there's 4 Hunger Games movies, and he is in all of them. But Stanley Tucci plays Caesar Flickerman in the Hunger Games movies, who is the longtime announcer of the Hunger Games. He appears in all 4 films. He's, like, the eccentric, like, welcome to the Hunger Games. We're going to interview all the contestants and blah, 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 blah. And so, like, you know, in the first Hunger Games movie, you don't really get the sense that he's, like, a bad guy. He's just, like, a Capitol guy who works for the Capitol. And it's very similar sense that you get with Elizabeth Banks' character Effie Trinket. Like, both of them in the first movie are kind of like, okay, you guys are just like rich people who are in the Capitol and involved in the games, and you're not President Snow, you're not the most nefarious people involved in the Hunger Games, but like you're still not good guys because you're still like Capitol citizens.
Yeah.
And then in the later movies that really diverges because Effie Trinket becomes a much more sympathetic character, whereas Caesar Flickerman sort of stays the same and is more of like a mouthpiece of the Capitol throughout the rest of the series. That becomes especially apparent in Mockingjay, where the 2 times you see him in the 2 Mockingjay movies is in the first one he's giving like 60 minutes and he's doing all of these interviews with PETA that are basically like propaganda for the Capitol while PETA has been brainwashed. And then the only time you see him in Mockingjay Part 2 is when he does this announcement that Katniss has died trying to infiltrate the Capitol, which is not true, but the Capitol believes it to be true. And so he just like sort of is like the eccentric guy who hosts the games, but like definitely there's like some nefarious shit going on, and we never find out what happens to him. Like in the book or in the movie, like it is never clear whether Flickerman is executed along with other like Capitol officials or whether he is spared, and so his fate is sort of left unknown to the end. He's being played by Kieran Culkin in Sunrise on the Reaping, which is the prequel movie that's coming out this year about the 50th Hunger Games. But yeah, I mean, Stanley Tucci is such a great fit for this role. He's really in his character actor bag. He gets lots of fun wigs. It's blue in the first movie and then I think purple and throughout the rest of them. And yeah, he's a really good fit for this part. One of the times I find him the least attractive, frankly, which is kind of the point because the Capitol people are supposed to look kind of weird. It's very much like the thing that we talked about in the plastic surgery episodes of like looking freaky as a way of showing that you're in an in-group. But yeah, he's really good in these movies. I think he was the Hunger Games casting was unbelievable. And I mentioned this in the last episode that like a lot of the movies he was in the last era were cast by a woman named Deborah Zane. And Deborah Zane is also the casting director for the Hunger Games movies. And she just really ate it up. Like snaps for Deborah Zane. She's a fantastic casting director. So Sunrise of the Reaping, there's a lot of the characters we've seen before have like younger versions of them. And so Donald Sutherland, who is President Snow throughout the series, the younger version of him is going to be Ralph Fiennes. And then Stanley Tucci, we have younger Stanley Tucci being Kieran Culkin. And then we also have young Philip Seymour Hoffman being Jesse Plemons, which I think is just inspired casting.
Of course. It's what everybody wants.
And I think that she just like really ate, like with the Hunger Games casting, like Josh Hutcherson is so good as PETA. And like Jennifer Lawrence, when she first was cast, I was like a kid who read the book who was like, that's not good casting. And after watching all 4 of the movies, I was like, that's actually a perfect casting.
The only thing I ever hear with Jennifer Lawrence is that it like in the actual books, I think Katniss is described as having darker skin.
She's described as having olive skin, which is so kind of up for interpretation. But
Okay.
she is quite fair. Like Jennifer Lawrence is quite fair, whereas I do think that like Katniss is written to have olive skin. Whether that means she's a person of color is not necessarily true, but there are like obviously race dynamics along with poverty dynamics, and like District 12 is the poorest district, and so I think some people were like, why wouldn't you cast a woman of color?
I think now if the Hunger Games was getting adapted, they probably would have a woman of color as Katniss.
I think that's 100% true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that Stanley Tucci is an incredible cast in this movie. I think he does a great job in this movie. I had never watched any of the movies past the first one until this past week, and I have a great appreciation for them, and I'm really excited about Sunrise on the Reaping. Like I think it's going to be a good movie.
I feel like Hunger Games has gotten such a resurgence just in the past few years with these prequel books coming out and then the prequel movies, but I feel like there was like radio silence before that like I felt like it was like, cool, you had Hunger Games and then that was a moment that was over, and I was sort of like, okay, I guess all the fans just sort of moved on, and then it's come back just bigger than ever.
We were talking about this week, and with some friends, my friend Greta is a huge fan of the Hunger Games, and her and I were like, you can't really do with the Hunger Games what you do with like Percy Jackson or Harry Potter, because it's not like fun. It's not fun. Like it's like these are books about children having to kill each other and about the takeover of a tyrannical government. Like, it's about a governmental overthrow. And so, like, it's not fun to be like, I think I would be in District 7. Because it's like, I mean, I guess that's because it's like, it's all about people who are being fucking oppressed. And also, like, no one's gonna cop to, like, I think I'd be a District 2, one of the fucking careers. Like, and you can't, like, do rides for you can't do a theme park for the Hunger Games. You can't really do, like, merch besides, like, Mockingjay merch. Like, it's not as... It's actually shocking how much commercial success it has had, given the subject matter of these books.
Yeah. Well, and I just think I really do love that they have never leaned away from how political they are. And I think now more than ever, how topically political they are.
Yeah. I think Suzanne Collins is, like incredibly based and is sort of like the anti-J.K. Rowling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I hope she continues on that streak. I mean, I was always sort of indifferent to Hunger Games because I didn't realize how political it was until fairly recently. And now I'm like, damn, maybe I should read all the Hunger Games books.
They're good. They're good, genuinely. And the movies are really, like, a good watch, too. And, you know, I watched most of them within this past week.
Yeah.
All right. We have time for a couple more. I think that covers all of the Hunger Games.
I didn't watch Feud, Betty and Joan, but I would like to know what you thought of it.
So I didn't watch all of it. I watched a few episodes that Stanley Tucci was in. I generally enjoyed it. I actually was, while watching it, I was surprised in a way that Stanley Tucci and Ryan Murphy haven't worked together more, because I think his acting style is very aesthetically similar to what Ryan Murphy is interested in. So I'm interested in, like, how the filming of this one, if maybe they just, like, didn't get along. But so in this show, Tucci plays Jack Warner, who is one of the two Warner Bros of the movie company, who's basically, like, in this, like, separate feud about this movie, about what happened to Baby Jane, with Alfred Molina and, like, the other studios who are trying to make this movie. And so he plays Jack Warner, who is, like, this sort of, like, eccentric, like, notably sort of cutthroat, like, guy who founded Warner Bros. So this is also there's a really interesting trend that happens, like, starting around this time. I think this is the first time, actually, where they put him in a wig to make him appear balding, which is, like, kind of iconic. So we, like, get all of it starting, like, around this time, which is, like, late 2010s. We start getting all of these characters of his where they're, like, putting him in wigs to make him look balding instead of just having him be bald. Mm-hmm. And I think that does harken back to some of what we were talking about last episode about, like, I don't know, like, almost like de-ossifying him.
We must de-ossify Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, because, like, I would say that the time that they put him in wigs, or for, like, a character like Caesar Flickerman where it feels kind of necessary, they put him in wigs if the star of the movie is another bald man. So, for example, he does a movie with Jason Statham, so they put Stanley Tucci in a wig. Or they, like, I don't know, like, all the times when they put him in one of these what I can only describe as, like, horseshoe wigs, is it's like, trying to, like, de-sex him almost. It's interesting.
Well, it gets into what we were talking about last week about the different patterns of balding and how when people are in that in-between, I think culturally that's coded as unattractive compared to being fully shaved or, you know, having a full head of hair.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I am surprised that, like, they haven't done more together, Ryan Murphy and Stanley Tucci. Also, we have Alfred Molina and...
I love Alfred Molina.
Stanley Tucci in this series again together and, like, their own sort of feud going on. There's a really great scene at the two of them at dinner where they're, like, yelling at each other, being like, well, you should have come to me sooner about this. I've been trying to come to you soon, but you can't get your head up your ass and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, I don't know. It was really delightful to, like, see them do a scene together again. And yeah, I liked it. I think that, like, sometimes Ryan Murphy cooks.
Here's the thing. Ryan Murphy is always willing to cook for usually 1 to 3 seasons of whatever project he's interested in, and then after that, we'll just not give a shit about it.
And sometimes it's The Beauty, where he didn't cook at all.
No. Everybody hated
He did not even turn on the stove.
People, it seems like, are into the American Love Story, though.
But is that actually him, or is he just the producer on it?
I feel like it's in his universe.
It is in his universe. I just don't know. Oh no, he is the executive producer. He is the executive producer on it. Yeah, people are into that one, except for the Kennedy family.
And you know what? At this point, if the Kennedy family endorses something, it just means that I will not be partaking.
Well, I should take specifically the Schlossberg family.
Okay.
Specifically, like, Jack Schlossberg and his family, not like RFK. Yeah. All right. Hit me with one, Aubrey.
fuck it. Let's just talk about Conclave.
Great, let's talk about Conclave.
A movie that when I watched it, I put it on, Josh immediately fell asleep. And so his experience of Conclave was that as he's falling asleep, they're trying to figure out who the new pope is. When he wakes up, they pick the new pope.
Hell yeah.
That's his summary of what happens in Conclave. And
that's awesome.
It's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
It's maybe the simplest way to tell the story of Conclave.
Yeah. So I loved Conclave. I thought it was a really, really lovely movie. I think that, like, the two, like, most, like, prestige projects that Stanley Tucci was involved in this era, and probably ever, were Spotlight and Conclave. And Conclave is the more recent of the two. In Conclave, he plays sort of like the progressive candidate for Pope, who you originally think is gonna, like, have the sauce, and then he, like, it becomes immediately, he's Aldo. It's immediately clear, Aldo Bellini, I believe, it's immediately clear he, like, doesn't have the votes. And so they're like, fuck, we need to find a different progressive candidate. So one of these, like, conservative popes doesn't actually win. I wrote my king, my legend. He's so good in this movie. Him and Ralph Fiennes were eating it up. I kept waiting for him to turn out to be evil, but he is just a ride or die for Ralph Fiennes and the Catholic Church, and I love that for him. And I also wrote that this is Stanley Tucci's entry into the hot priest genre.
My review of this is so fucking dumb. So there is a scene in Conclave where somebody picks up a turtle, and it's just the end of this scene, and it's symbolic, but then it immediately cuts to an incinerator, and I was like, holy shit, this turtle is about to be burned alive for no reason. And it really took me until, like, a minute into the scene to be like, okay, there will not be a turtle death in this movie.
I'm trying to see what my Letterboxd review is.
I've got it pulled up, brother. It says, man, it's a slow start, but I wasn't expecting a movie about the Catholic Church to fill me with hope about an uncertain future.
Aw.
Our friend Bryce said, awesome. The leads are awesome. The production design is awesome. The sets, the costumes, the lighting, the sound. Awesome. Ending is interesting, but glad to see him shoot for it.
Bryce loves Conclave. That's a known fact about Bryce DeLillo.
I rated it, it's funny because I gave it 3.5, you gave it 4, he gave it 4.5. So we're all, it just incrementally, slightly different experience between all of us.
It's a bunch of boys talking in a room, and slightly different rooms. I just maybe don't have enough religious trauma to really appreciate it, I guess.
I just love this idea.
I mean, I gave it a 4. I loved it.
I just love Conclave for kind of exposing corruption and contradictions of the people who we culturally would deem the most moral, and thinking about the darkest parts of humanity in the bid for power and status. And I just feel like it asks really good questions about, like, is anybody truly good? Can you be truly good and be in a position of power at all?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Aubrey, I think you get to pick one more, probably.
Fuck it. Who was Stanley Tucci in Robot Chicken?
Okay, so Robot Chicken was something that I, like, really have never engaged with.
Me neither.
So
Robot Chicken, like, freaks me out. I don't know why. Like, I love Seth Green, and I love, like, Family Guy and shit like that. If I put on Robot Chicken, it makes my skin feel weird. Like, I think it's also, like, the pace is
really... The pace is really crazy. So my first note was, sorry, Seth Green made Robot Chicken. So Tucci voices a fucked up Monopoly man in a Boardwalk Monopoly, like a play on Boardwalk Empire sketch. And I'm a little bit like, let him cook.
Okay, that's kind of funny.
CW show when. He also does the voice at a party of like a guy who's like the host of a party who keeps trying to offer a vampire a drink, and the vampire only wants the blood of the woman next to him.
That's the thing. Robot Chicken in general, when people describe the, like, skits, I'm like, okay, that's clever. And then I go to watch it and I'm like, ah.
It is very unsettling. I just didn't realize how many celebrities were on Robot Chicken, and also that Les Claypool does the music for it.
It's because Seth Green is beloved. Like, truthfully, and this is what I will say whenever I get to do my series about, like, Matthew Lillard, Seth Green, and Dax Shepard, is, like, they are guys who, to be honest, I think Matthew Lillard is extremely talented. I think Seth Green is somewhat talented. I don't think Dax Shepard is talented at all. But I think...
I love Employee of the Month.
That's an insane movie to say that you love. That's an insane movie to say that you love. But I think that with the three of them, they have been very successful in Hollywood because they're just, like, nice guys.
Beloved.
They're nice. They are nice guys to hang out with. Like, they are guys where I have no doubt that if I was in a room with with Matthew Lillard, Dax Shepard, or Seth Green that we would just like kick back, talk about whatever, and it would just be a chill time. And so I think that they probably have a lot of famous friends.
Yeah.
Because I think there are some celebrities where I'm like, I don't think this is a celebrity who's friends with other celebrities. Like, I don't think like Rachel McAdams is friends with a bunch of celebrities. But I think like Seth Green, Dax Shepard, Matthew Lillard, I think are all friends with celebrities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. Some quick fire ones that I just need to mention before we move on. He's in an episode of Monk. He plays an actor who's going to play Monk in a movie, and he's like a method actor, so he keeps like slowly becoming more and more like Monk until we see a Stanley Tucci in a Monk costume, and it's so good. Stanley Tucci in the Monk wig is unbelievable. It's so fucking good.
I never watched Monk. That's why I didn't pick it.
Oh, I didn't watch it either. My mom did. He is in a movie that I thought was strange called Some Velvet Morning, which is written by Neil LaBute, which you might know Reasons to Be Pretty or Fat Pig by Neil LaBute. This is a really weird movie. He's like if Michael Scott was a really horny scumbag, and he has like, it's a very dick forward movie. You never see his penis, but he's in really tight pants, and he's like dick in center of camera frame for a lot of the movie. I don't know that I can recommend this movie. I don't know that I could ever recommend this movie to a friend, but I watched it on a plane and I was like, this is strange.
Is it a comedy or?
No, it's just weird. It's not really a genre. It just freaked me out.
Okay.
It just freaked me out. If you ever want to feel unsettled for like 80 minutes, watch it. It's a two-hander play that they made into a movie for some fucking reason.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. He was in 2 Transformers movies as different characters. So he was in Age of Extinction as basically Elon Musk.
Why is he 2 different characters?
I don't know, but if you ever want to stop at the Transformers, we should, because at one point I wrote Optimus Prime is body T. My God, he snatched. Give me that Autobot build.
I will only talk about Transformers if I get to talk for several minutes uninterrupted about how much I hate Michael Bay.
That's fine. I will say, Age of Extinction, deeply anti-cop movie. I was kind of like, the politics of this are a little base. But yeah, he's basically playing if Elon Musk served cunt in that movie.
Right.
And then in the other Transformers movie, he plays Merlin the Wizard of the King Arthur.
Fuck it. Sure.
And I wrote Tucci with maximum hair. It's Tucci with the most hair in Transformers The Last Night.
That's awesome.
I think that was the last thing that okay, I did not get to finish this movie. It was like one of the last things I was watching before I needed to switch to watching the travel shows. But there's a gay Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci movie called Supernova.
Okay.
About a gay couple where Stanley Tucci has early onset dementia.
Oh my God.
And I wrote, they're so cutie together, those straight men. But I only got like 20-ish minutes in before I had to pivot to watching it was literally the last like movie I was gonna watch. And so I'm gonna finish it later. But It was very sweetie, and I was like, okay. He gets to play gay in like a sweet way this time instead of like in a sassy assistant way this time. Also, his last credit is Fountain of Youth, which is a movie starring John Krasinski, which I think he is in because he is John Krasinski's brother-in-law, and he's playing a elder of scrolls.
It's just crazy to think that they are family, and I cannot imagine what it's like for them to have dinner together.
Yeah, I don't say that the first movies to me that where I felt like I watched and I was like, oh, Stanley Tucci kind of looks old now, was The Electric State and Fountain of Youth, which both came out last year. And that's not that he looks bad, but he just like, I was like, oh, like finally I feel like we've moved from like middle-aged Tucci to like older man Tucci, like truly like in the past year-ish. And so ultimately I think that Tucci roles fall into a few buckets. We have suave, smart mafia guy, evil but funny authority figure, trusted confidant, sometimes a gay man, sometimes a husband or father, sometimes a priest, and evil chaos sprite. And I think like thinking of him as a character actor is very apt because he plays so many types of roles throughout his filmography. But if I had to label his type, I think they largely fall into those categories. I also think it's important to talk about in this discussion about Stanley Tucci that he started making food and drink content on Instagram and TikTok during the pandemic, which made a lot of middle-aged white women very horny. Specifically, his Negroni video went super viral, and now he does all sorts of stuff online. Aubrey, we are going to watch. I have not watched the Negroni video. I saved it to watch together.
All right, I can't wait to be aroused.
So
A shot of sweet vermouth. If you can find a good sweet vermouth, that's great. And then a single shot of Campari, made in Milan.
Campari, made in Milan.
And there's that. Now, you want to garnish it.
He serves it up, which is crazy work for a Negroni.
Pre-sliced orange. This is actually the way we buy our oranges. It's not true at all. So you want to put the orange in here. You want to put a little bit of the juice in, a little bit. Don't let anyone see you handle it like that. And there we are. That's that. You want it, Felicity? That will never happen.
Feelings?
I mean, he's sexy.
There's so many bartenders actuallying him in the comments, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. That's not what this is about, and you all know it, okay?
I love at the end when he's like, you want it, Felicity? It's like, yeah, you can put your wiener in my mouth.
And this is when all the articles about like him being a sex symbol start getting written. So Aubrey, I have one other. We don't need to watch all of this, just like the first, I think, like little bit of it.
When your sister-in-law, Emily Blunt, was on
Yes,
here not that long ago, and we
Yeah.
had a little discussion about the phenomenon that is people's love for Stanley Tucci.
Yeah.
And we were talking about your status as a sex symbol. Don't argue.
Yeah.
And let's not debate your status as a sex symbol.
Right.
I want to know that are you surprised to become a sex symbol, or does this just make sense?
No, I'm surprised it took them so long. That's all. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that he just leans into it and it's like, I'm surprised it took them so long to realize.
Yeah. And I also, I love Stephen Colbert being like, you're hot. Shut up. Don't argue with me about this. He's like, shut the fuck up. This is the reality of the situation.
Well, I feel like it just must be so affirming for him because, like, when men lose their hair, when men get older, I think that a lot of men feel insecure about not being attractive. And so I think it must feel really validating for him to, like, in some of this more, like, golden years of his life, to have people be like, you are a sex symbol. You are daddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I hope Stephen Colbert knows the same applies to him.
Stephen Colbert
I hope he's aware of it.
I have thought Stephen Colbert is sexy my entire life.
He's beautiful gowns over there, Stephen Colbert.
The moment I first saw Stephen Colbert on TV, I was like, you are hot to me. Like, Stephen Colbert to me is the example I always give when somebody is like dad hot. Like, to me, Stephen Colbert is the ultimate, like, I see him at a barbecue, I see him on a porch, and he's wearing some, like, fuck-ass little shorts, but I am like...
You're like, Mr. Colbert, I'm like, to talk to you.
Like, they're like, okay, go over to Mr. Colbert and go get your hot dog, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself.
I don't want to talk to Mr. Colbert, that's scary.
He's so sexy, he's gonna look at me.
And I would feel the same way if someone was like, okay, go ask Mr. Tucci for a soda. I'd be like, what do you mean?
I'd be like, I don't want to talk to Mr. Tucci. And then they'd be like, oh, don't be scared of him, honey. Go give him a hug. And I would just be like freaking out because I just would be unbelievably horny. Yeah. Jon Stewart is also sexy.
Yeah.
That's just obvious.
So Stanley Tucci also does 2 travel shows. He does Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy and Tucci in Italy. They are
He searched for it and then he found it.
He found it and I was just there. They are basically the exact same thing. I found Searching for Italy slightly more engaging, but neither to me was as engaging as Conan or Eugene Levy's. But I will say I
didn't like Conan's.
Well, I think Eugene Levy's is the best one.
I haven't seen Eugene Levy's.
I think Eugene Levy's is the best one.
I would probably love it though. I love anything with Eugene Levy.
Oh my god, Eugene Levy is so... Because I think that he straddles... Because like Conan's on one edge where... my issue with Conan is that sometimes he does feel like he's like poking a little bit too much fun at the culture. Mm-hmm. Whereas Eugene Levy is more like, I am really trepidatious about the culture, but that's awesome for you guys. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that I really do appreciate about Stanley Tucci's is that he like... You can tell that he really does love Italy, and he talks so much Italian to the locals, and so like it's just not as engaging because it's just like, and now we're in this part of Italy and eating this food. It's very, I mean, the second one I think was made by the Discovery Channel, or no, by National Geographic maybe. Mm-hmm. I think it's National Geographic, and it feels more like a travel, like just like a straight travel show you would have seen on like the Discovery Channel or Nat Geo back in the day, as opposed to like, I don't know, he doesn't have as much of like his flavor in there, which I think was a little bit of a bummer.
Well, that's where like I feel like what people really liked about the clip of him making the drink is like seeing a little bit about what he's like in the banter.
Yeah.
What I would would actually have wanted from like a food and wine show with him would have it be him and his wife.
Yeah.
And almost like a barefoot Contessa vibe. Like, oh, we're going to have our friends over for dinner tonight. Here's how we're going to entertain.
Yeah, so when are we getting Stanley Tucci playing Barefoot Contessa's husband?
Who would play Ina? Me? I would be Ina.
I don't think if Stanley Tucci's playing the husband, I don't think you should be playing Ina.
Okay, being completely dead ass though, I would eat up being Ina Garten in an Ina Garten biopic.
I don't think you're wrong about that.
I would eat that shit up. And Ina Garten also Ina Garten is my body positive icon where when I start to feel like weird and bad about my body, I just look at pictures of Ina Garten because I'm like, you are just so effortlessly chic and beautiful and fun and like have never been a thin woman.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for
But also never really gets coded as a fat woman either, which I find really interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. Because that's specifically why it might be a little bit hard to... Because, like, you know, I do think, like, and I mean this very genuinely, I do think, like, an 80 Bryant would be a really good... I know at some point, but, like, she's too young right now, really. But that my first thought was 80 Bryant. Even more so than, like, Melissa McCarthy. I was like, oh, 80 Bryant, I think, would be, like, a really... sweet.
Oh my god, yeah. 80 Bryant in like, I don't know, like 20 years or something.
Like, I think she'd eat that up.
Mm-hmm. It's because Ina Garten is just everybody's like fantasy best friend.
I love her so much. And so yeah, like I said, like you can tell that Stanley Tucci really does love Italy, like, and I think that's why they made him like one of the co-hosts of the Milan Olympics this year. I was like not entertained by him hanging out with Snoop Dogg. I was like, okay, whatever, I don't care. So I just like,
because I'm like, he doesn't seem like he's like interesting or intelligent or fun to be around.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just an icon, but then he's also like now doing all this conservative shit that's weird and fucked up, and I felt really weird when everyone like gave him a standing ovation at the Golden Globes.
Yeah, I honestly, I push back on calling Snoop Dogg an icon. I think that he has had really good branding.
Yeah, I think it's harder for me, like, I don't know.
I'm not team Snoop Dogg, I guess, and I'm also a white woman, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it too, but, so I actually, last week when I was in New Orleans, did a slideshow version of these episodes for my entire team, because we had to all do a slideshow presentation, and I did one on Stanley Tucci being a sex symbol. Aubrey knows this because I had her send me a video to put in it. So I'm just gonna kind of end with, I have not like a speech to end this one, but I do have my slides that I'm just gonna kind of use to guide me through the rest of this episode. So, well, the thing that I kind of came through when I was making the slideshow and thinking about all the stuff for this episode is that, like, I think that, like, Stanley Tucci represents a really specific form of, like, non-threatening, non-toxic masculinity. Like, if we think about all the times we talk about, like, toxic masculinity in the past few years, I think Stanley Tucci is, like, a really good emblem of, like, not toxic masculinity, which I think is complicated, like, when you have the story about him and Anne Hathaway, because then you sort of be like, are you also still being a toxic man in situations? Probably. But I think in his public persona, so I should say, I'm not really talking about Stanley Tucci, the man here. I'm talking about Stanley Tucci, the celebrity, the, like, public perception of him. Because I think he's bald in a non-threatening way. I think he's a short king in a non-threatening way. I think he's Italian in a non-threatening way. And you might be like, because some of those things can't be threatening. Bald in a threatening way, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yes.
Short king in a non-threatening way. A lot of men got a lot of feelings about being short and are kind of mean about it and make it everyone else's problem. Italian in a non-threatening way. You ever been walking through a big crowd of Italian men and have them catcall you? I feel threatened. And I think there's like a thing of like, I could call this metrosexuality, but I do think there's a difference here in talking about like a non-toxic masculinity and a metrosexuality. And I don't want to say like, I think we could call Stanley Tucci a metrosexual man. He definitely has like metropolitan, cosmopolitan vibe, but I don't think it really dips into effeminate, which I feel that metrosexual has a connotation of.
I think he's a little effeminate.
I think he is
It's like a diamond. It's like when the light catches it right, I see it.
I do too.
But then there are also times where he's very masculine.
Yeah, and I just like I want to draw a distinction between like I feel like metrosexual so often has this like is he gay or European connotation to it, which I think which I do think that like Stanley Tucci falls into sometimes, but like it is different to me in some ways, and maybe just like the cultural connotation of metrosexuality that I grew up with. But I do think that like metrosexuality always was like coded for a straight man who seems gay. And I want to show you this clip of we're just gonna watch the beginning of this Aubrey. We didn't talk about this movie, but he's in a movie during this era that we talked about today called Wild Card, which is him and Jason Statham, and he plays a mob boss called Baby during like this clip I'm gonna show you. These 8 minutes are the only 8 minutes of the movie that Stanley Tucci is in. We're only gonna watch about the first minute or so. When you see Milo Ventimiglia, stop watching.
Done.
I'm just in a terrible bind, and it's all because of you. It seems that somebody broke into room 3506 last night, beat up on 3 guys, and took $50,000.
And that was before I had my Wheaties.
If only that were funny. An eyewitness claims that someone was you.
And you believe that?
If I did, you'd be dead. Come along, Nicholas.
Come along where?
To see DeMarco. I have to find the truth.
Wait a minute. You mean I'm on trial?
For your life, I should imagine.
Yeah, so this movie is proof that sometimes good actors can be bad.
I think it's the writing.
It's so badly written. I watched 60 seconds of that clip, and it felt like 15 minutes had passed.
I know. It's just the pacing in it was just really not good. But do you see what I mean? Like, just like watching him and Jason Statham interact, it's like these are two very masculine men, but in extremely different ways.
Right. Like, I feel like Stanley Tucci, particularly in that clip, embodies the ideals of masculinity around, like, confidence, suaveness, not letting anybody shake you.
Yeah.
Whereas Jason Statham actually doesn't embody that at all and just seems much more like shaken and kind of taken aback, even though he looks more physically intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like, in a lot of ways, like, Stanley Tucci's kind of like doming him in this scene. And but it's in this like very quiet. It's not like in an aggressive way. It's just like, I don't know if you got to the part, but there's a part where he's like, wait, Jason's like, wait, am I on trial here? And Stanley Tucci's like, yeah, for your life, I imagine. When he's like the one putting him on trial for his life. And so it's like, but it's just like, it's this like very like cool thing that, like, I don't know. I do think it's a very distinct form of masculinity that, like, I think Tucci does in many of his characters outside of like the evil chaos demons really is.
Right. I mean, it's like, I've heard some different men talk to me about it as like the kind of like true masculinity, right? Like, a lot of people think masculinity is being loud and violent and whatever, but being masculine to me is like showing up for my family and being a provider and whatever, like embodying that ethos.
It's so funny that you say that, because literally the next slide in my slideshow was a slide that says masculinity can be non-threatening, it can be comforting, and then I'm gonna cry because I always cry thinking about my family now. It's a picture of me and my dad, and then my dad with my brothers, and it's like I grew up around all my brothers. My brothers are both athletes. My dad was an athlete. Like, I grew up around like big masculine dudes who are like also like soft, lovely men. Specifically my father. I think my father really, in specific, like exemplifies that. And like my dad is like a dude who loves sports and getting a beer and all that shit. But also like, Mackenna, would you like to watch the Dua Lipa Royal Albert Hall concert with me? Yes, I would, Papa. Of course I would. And so it's like, I think I grew up with like that form of masculinity around me a lot more than the other forms. And so I grew up with a very positive look at masculinity that I didn't really start to get fucked up for me until I started interacting with men who were scary.
Well, and I feel like for me, I had sort of the opposite experience where I had just so much toxic masculinity around me, but I always sought out that kind of alternative masculinity, and that's what I ended up finding in a partner, and that's just what I always seek out around, like, men who I choose to have, frankly, any kind of, like, relationship with, whether it's, like, professional, friends, whatever.
Totally. And so I think, like, a lot of the series we've been talking about the fact that, like, losing your hair does not make you less. I can't say the word less. Losing your hair does not make you less masculine. In fact, like, that study we talked about last time, like, it, in fact, can, like, have people rate you as more masculine at times. But, like, it does not, even being in the process of losing your hair does not make you less masculine. It's just a transitional state. And I just want to be clear again that, like, I don't think Stanley Tucci is a perfect man. In addition to the thing that we talked about with Anne Hathaway today, he, like, very credibly cheated on his first wife. And, like I don't want people to walk away from this series thinking that like this was like me being like Stanley Tucci is the perfect man. I don't think that at all. And again, like we really are trying to focus here on like the public persona of this person, and not on who they are as an actual individual. But I think that
we're talking about what like the character embodies, right? And like what does the way that Stanley Tucci's appearance has been coded in media say about broader society's perspective about how men should look, behave, and like what values they embody.
And I think with any celebrity also there's like, I don't know, and I'm sure this is a really difficult thing to go through. Like there's a point where like who you are to the world is not who you are to yourself. And like I think about this with Taylor Swift specifically all the time of just like when something is imposed so strongly on you versus who you think yourself to be or who you even are genuinely to your friends and family. So yeah, we're talking about the public persona here, but like I do think we can learn something about masculinity from this nearly universal attraction to Stanley Tucci. And like my big message would be, so let's all get out there and have boys' night in a non-threatening way. And that's Stanley Tucci. My God, I watched too much shit for this series, guys. Aubrey, you have to do the next one. I can't watch anything anymore. The Watch Factory is closed.
Suggestions for who to do next are welcome. I mean, I could always talk about how I legitimately did this with Jared Leto for no reason.
Did you watch all of his movies or just all of his music videos?
Everything.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was the same rules as you where I didn't purchase anything, but if I could watch it streaming for free or it was free in some way to me, I watched it. It's how I watched My So-Called Life, which is a phenomenal teen show, which is basically the blueprint for every teen show that ever came after it, and it gets amazing in the last 3 episodes and then got canceled.
Damn. I think I remember My So-Called Life. I probably watched like portions of it growing up, but I don't really have memories of it.
It is like genuinely it should be studied in writing classes, in like screenwriting classes, because it is the last, in particular 3 episodes, you can feel that they are on the cusp of something that is going to be so fucking great, and then it got canceled. And I think every teen show that has come after it is trying to embody what if My So-Called Life didn't end.
Totally. Like what teen shows would you say like you feel like are like spiritual successors to it in some way?
I mean, like probably like any kind of like Degrassi. Any kind of like even like Buffy. I feel like Buffy took a lot of notes from My So-Called Life, but just put it in a supernatural context. So I mean, yeah, like any show that is like teens in a high school.
Great. I love that. You know who never got to be a teen in the high school? Stanley Tucci. He was too old. Well, I don't know. I guess he was bald. Like, he was balding by the time he was in his late 20s. So they weren't ever like, let's make him a teen.
Stanley Tucci like, teen era when?
I don't think we're gonna get it. Well, CGI. They can do to him what they did in The Irishman with Robert De Niro and make him look all young in the face but still move like an old man.
No, not digitally de-aged Stanley Tucci. He's in my nightmares. He can't hurt me. He's not real.
Did we ever talk about the Levi's ad on this series?
Which one?
The one where he's sexy. So no.
We didn't.
Okay.
No, he's so hot in that.
All right, everyone, we're gonna leave you with this. If you want to just have a nice little night to yourself, and by a night to yourself, I mean 30 seconds, just look up Levi's ad Stanley Tucci. It's from 1986. It's 39 seconds long. He's there. He's Tucci. He's looking good. Also, we're taking next week off, but we will be back on March 22nd with a series that Aubrey and I are both very excited about. So you'll hear us then. Bye.
Bye.
Have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss? Send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.